have discussed yesterday was time complexity, is it? So, is there anyone who's having any kind of doubt related with time complexity? Anything? कोई ऐसा है जिसको अभी भी प्रॉब्लम है? How to calculate? Sorry, what is time complexity and what does it mean? Initially we were giving a definition that it is the time required to execute a program. Fine. But the thing is, we don't know the exact time of execution. Fine. No one can calculate the exact time of execution. We just can assume, we just can put an assumption that 99% of output is the exact time. But what about that 1%? Fine. So time complexity is not the time of execution. Time complexity is the number of time complexity is a relation of your iteration, that the amount of time taken by your looping statement to complete the iteration. Fine. So today we'll be starting with how to calculate time complexity. Then after we'll be starting with number theory. Number theory consists of how to calculate prime numbers, how to calculate cofactors, prime factors, what is factorial. We'll be seeing every single thing one by one. Fine. So let me start. Let me share my screen. Oh, it's already shared. Fine. So the last topic which we have discussed was time complexity, and I think I'm done with the basics of time complexity, right? So let's start how to calculate. So, is there anyone who knows anything about the calculation of time complexity? Can anyone help me with that? How can I calculate time complexity? Fine. So, what is time complexity? I'm being very known to it, but how to calculate it? Anyone who knows anything about that?
सर जो दो लूप आइटरेट हो रहे हैं तो फर्स्ट लूप की एक बार टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी देखनी है और सेकंड लूप की टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऐड करके
Mhm.
कुछ ऐसा समथिंग.
The thing is, ki I'm not asking about how to approach towards time complexity. I'm just asking about the calculation thing. Fine. So let's start with something from very basic, right? So you must have heard that the time complexity of this program is big O of n. So I think we are familiar with big O notation. Big O notation simply means a notation which describes the worst case scenario from a time complexity. Fine. So if the time complexity of my approach is big O of n, that simply means I will be having my time complexity as much as but not more than big O of n. That was my worst case scenario, right? So what is big O of n? So let's start with something which we have studied when we were in our class 8 or 9. Fine. So there was a chapter named linear equation. So what does linear equation means? An equation which is being made up of variables and values. Fine. So let's say if I have to go with the formula or the notation of a straight line. Fine. So the formula of a straight line was y is equals to mx plus c. Let's not make it more complex. If I'll be writing x plus y is equals to 8, right? So what does it mean? If I'll be putting x is equals to 3 and y is equals to 5, I'll be getting 8. If I'll be putting x is equals to 4, y is equals to 4, I'll be getting 8. So what's the intuition? The intuition is the sum of two numbers should be 8 and they're irrespective of any values. But the sum should be 8, right? So there can be a situation x can also be 0 and y can also be 8 and vice versa. X can be 8 and y can be 0. So what's the intuition? What's why I'm discussing this linear equation thing here? The reason is if you won't be seeing any power to any equation, X is not having any power, Y is not having any power. This power thing is not there. So if the degree of an equation is not one. If degree of an equation is one, that simply means the variables which are being used in that equation, they are having maximum power of 1. X to the power 1, y to the power 1 is equals to 8. But the moment when I'll be writing x square plus y square is equals to 16, this thing won't be a linear equation now, because every variable, or in this equation, my degree is 2, the highest power is 2, but it should be 1. So time complexity is something which has been derivated from the linear and exponential equation. So if I have degree 1, I will be saying the equation is having, the equation is linear equation. But if the degree is 2, the equation is exponential equation. So it can be irrespective of any values. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5, anything. But if it is 1, that will be called as linear equation. If it's not 1, more than 1, that will be called as exponential equation. Fine. So from now onwards, if you will be saying big O of n anywhere, big O of n, that simply means this approach, the approach which you have written, which leads to the big O of n time complexity, this approach will be called as linear case time complexity. So being a good programmer, I won't be saying big O of n. I will be saying this code, the time complexity of this code is linear. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear with this. What is linear case time complexity? Now, sir, we have discussed the linear one, but what about the rest ones? Fine. Now see here. Let's say I've written big O of, now this n is having a power 2. That's called big O of n square. That is exponential time complexity. What does it mean? Sir, what is this n? And from where this big O of n square, big O of n is getting into the picture? How things are working? Let's start with that. Let's say, now let's start with the basics of time complexity, how to calculate this. Let's say I have n is equals to 24. Fine. And what I want you to print the values from 1 to 24, and that value should be in a linear order. Fine. So I have two approaches for that. So what's my intuition? I have to print the values from 1 to 24. Man, they are late. It's already 7:13. Fine. So what I have to do, I have to print the values from 1 to 24, right? So I have a way, and the way is, sir, I will be creating 24 variables, and every variable will be storing the values from 1 to 24. Let's say I have a variable A that stores 1 for me. I have a variable B which stores 2 for me. I have a variable C which stores 3 for me. And similarly, I will be having a variable X which will store 24 for me. Now tell me one thing. To print a value, do I need this much of variables? Say me yes or no. Is it an optimal approach to create this much of variables just to print the values from 1 to 24? No, it's not. You have
No, sir.
created you have created 24 locations in your memory. You just blocked 24 blocks of your memory, which was not needed. So what I'll be doing, I'll be using a loop in this case. Why? Because loop will perform something again and again until the condition is being met, until the stopping condition is being met. So can I just say one thing? My loop will be asking two things from me. First, where I have to start. Second, where I have to end. So I know both of the things. I'll start my iteration from 1, and I'll end my iteration at 24. Now see here. I'll be taking a for loop. So we have three types of loops, that is for, while, and do while, right? So as we will be moving ahead, you will be getting the difference between for, while, and do while. So we don't use do while generally. Fine. We are toggling in between for and while loop, right? So what's the intuition? One is an integer value. Two is an integer value. 3 is an integer value, 4 is an integer value. So that means I'll have to take a variable that will start from 1 and that will end at 24. And that variable will be of integer type. So what I'll be doing, I'll be taking the data type whose values will be counted. Int I is equals to the very first value which I want to print is 1. Then I'll have to specify when I have to stop. Fine. I'm starting my iteration from I is equals to 1 and I want to stop at 24. So should I write here? Update my I until my I is less than or equals to 24. That is I plus plus. यार but it's 7:17, right? You guys are 17 minutes late. Fine. Please next time से ये मत करिएगा यार. Fine. I know you guys are getting recording, but it doesn't mean कि आप किसी भी random time पे आएंगे. Right? Fine. So I have a for loop. That for loop is being starting with 1. It's going till 24. And every time, if I'm done with 1, the next value which I need is 2. So every time I'll be incrementing my I with plus 1. So by default, in for loop or in a loop situation, plus plus I and I plus plus both will act as the same thing. Right? So what I did, I have given the initial point for my loop. I have given when to stop that loop and how to increment that loop. And in that, what I'll be doing, I'll be using a print function. So it depends on the language. If you are using C, so you would be writing printf. If you are using Python, you'll be writing print. If you are using Java, system.out.println. And if you are using C++, that will be C out. Fine. So I just want to print the current value of I. That is I. That's it. What does it mean? Let's say the very first value of my I is 1. Is my 1 less than 24? Yes, it is. So I'll print I. And what's the current value of my I? Is 1. 1 will be printed. In the next iteration, my I will become 2. Is my 2 less than 24? Yes, it is. 2 will get printed. In the next value, I will become 3. 3 is less than 24? Yes, it is. 3 will get printed. Similarly, 24 will get printed. But the moment But in the next iteration, when my I will become 25, is my 25 less than 24? No, it's not. This loop will break and I'll end up getting the values from 1 to 24. So I just print the values from 1 to 24. I haven't used 24 different variables for that. What I did, I just have taken the help of a loop. I've started my iteration from 1, have ended it at 24, and just printing the value of I. That's it. What if this time my n was 29? So this loop will bring the values from 1 to 29. What if my n is equals to 50? This loop will print the values from 1 to 50. So are you guys noticing something? If you notice one thing, the value which I am giving as an input, whether it's 29, whether it's 50, whether it's 25, every time my loop is exactly making the same number of iterations. If I have to print the values from 1 to 29, so 1 to 29 simply means 29 values. And I'm passing n is equals to 29. So if you'll notice one thing, the number of iterations, the number of times my loop is running, that is my iterations. The number of iterations I'm making is equals to the value I'm giving as an input. Guys, say me yes or no if I'm being clear till now. If we are on the same page, just say me yes or no how I'm comparing the number of iterations and the given input.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So I'm passing n is equals to 50 and I'm making 50 iterations. I'm passing n is equals to 30 and I'm getting 30 iterations. Now just note it down or just remember this thing for the rest of your DSA thing. Fine. If the number of iteration is somehow. Why I'm saying somehow? Because in some of the cases it would be 49 also, 48 also, 47 also. Let's say you are passing n is equals to 50 and it's making 49 iterations, 48 iterations, 47 iterations. What does it mean? It's somehow equals to 50 only. Why? 49 is somehow equals to 50. So in the current scenario, if you will notice, for there is a very big difference. So basically समझ में आने लगेगा आपको कि नहीं यार 49 तो बहुत छोटी वैल्यू है, 48 थोड़ी ना 50 होता है, 47 थोड़ी ना 50 होता है. But if I would be saying, buddy, I have n is equals to 5 lakh and your loop is making 4 lakh 99,980 iterations. अब तो बोलोगे ना approximately equal है. Say me yes or no. In this case, when your n is equals to 50 and you're making 49, 48 or 47 iterations, आपको उस समय पे लग सकता है कि भाई अभी तो डिफरेंस है. कैसे सर बोल दे रहे हैं कि n की वैल्यू और iterations की वैल्यू इक्वल है? You will not be able to figure it out in the with the smaller inputs. But the moment when you'll pass a bigger input, you will be able to see कि 5 lakh और 4 lakh 99,980 में बहुत difference नहीं है. Still my n. So if the given input and the number of iterations your loop is making is somehow equal, approximately equal. In that particular case, the time complexity will be big O of n. Say me yes or no if I'm being clear on this.
Yes, sir.
Give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this. सब yes बोलो फिर ही मैं आगे बढ़ूंगा. सबको क्लियर है? Why the time complexity is big O of n? Take 1 minute and revise the things. आपको कुछ पूछना है तो पूछ लो because I'm starting with some advanced things now. Okay, fine. Now let's go with a question. Let's say I have given you a value of n, and that can be any value. I'm not giving any fixed value to you. I'm like, man, you have n, and you just have to print the values from 1 to n. Fine. So let's say I just used a for loop, and in that for loop, it's starting from I is equals to 0. It's less than n because I want the values to be printed from 0 to n. If I have 24, what I want to print the values from 0 to 24. So if my n is 24, if my n is 30, if my n is 40, doesn't matter. N will be treated as a general value. In the terms of programming, we don't use to take random values. That man, my loop will run for 20 times, 50 times, 30 times. It's not like that. Your time complexity will be calculated in a general case in the form of n, right? So my for loop is starting from 0 to n, and every time I'm incrementing the value of my I with plus 1. And what I'm doing, I'm just printing the current value of I. Now let's say what Kathan has done. He was like, man, the value of n is 5. So I'll be getting an output 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say what Priyanshu did, he was like, man, the value of n is 10. So he will be getting values like 0, 1, 2 till 10. Similarly, koi और आएगा and he will be giving 100. So this guy will be printing the values from 0, 1, 2, 3 till 100. So basically, the amount of iteration, the number of iterations is equals to the given input n. So in this case, the time complexity will be big O of n. That's it. Now let's
सर
start with some, yeah.
सर ये आपने n इक्वल्स टू 5 जैसे लिया है तो इसमें 6 आइटरेशन हो गए ना, मतलब 6 वैल्यू आ गई है,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
5 तो 0 से 4 आएगी कि 0 से 5 ही आएगी वैल्यू?
See here. What I'm doing, n is equals to 5, right? See, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What happened? Is it fine? Right? So
Like,
basically the thing is, if my n is equals to 5 and I'm making, let's say, 6 iterations. If my n is equals to 10, because 0 is there, so I will be making 11 iterations. If my n is equals to 100, I'm making 101 iterations. यही कहना चाह रहे हो ना आप?
yes, sir.
The iteration is one more than. अब ध्यान से सुनो जो मैंने अभी एक लाइन बोली थी. The number of iterations and the given input n should be somehow equal. तो यार
Okay, okay, sir.
101, 10,
आ गया सर.
101, 11 and 6 वो लगभग n के बराबर ही तो है. Are you getting my point?
आ गया सर. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Now I have something called as factors. While ignore factors, or if I'll be saying points, needs to be remembered while calculating time complexity. उन कौन सी बातों का ध्यान रखना है टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी कैलकुलेट करते वक्त? सबसे पहला चीज, while calculating the time complexity, constants will be ignored. So what does it mean? Constant will be ignored. Let's say you have calculated the time complexity as we have just discussed. I was passing n is equals to 5, but this loop was giving me values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For my n is equals to 5, my loop is making n plus 1 iteration. If my n is equals to 5, my loop is running for 6 times. If my n is equals to 10, my loop is running for 11 times. If my n is equals to 100, my loop is running for 101 times. That simply means for n, for a value n, I am making n plus 1 iterations. And while calculating the time complexity, I won't be saying, man, the time complexity of this approach is big O of n plus 1. No, the constants will be ignored while calculating the time complexity. Are you getting my point? Let's say, let's say there was a value which was getting multiplied with my n. This time also, this constant will be ignored while calculating the time complexity. Let's say something is being divided by my equation n by 2. This will also be ignored while calculating the time complexity. And there's one more thing. Let's say for n is equals to 5, I'm making 3 iterations. I'm making 2 iterations. That means for n is for a random value n, I'm making n minus 2 iterations. Again, this 2 will be ignored and the time complexity will be big O of n. So just remember one thing, and not only remember this, when you'll be applying, when you'll be solving any problem and finding the time complexity, you just have to be taking care of this thing that constants will never be the part of my answer. They will never contribute in my answer. Sir, we ignore the constants, we are not going with the constants, but sir, प्रोग्रामिंग में तो कुछ भी ऐसे होता नहीं है. आप बोल दो कि इग्नोर करना है तो आप करने लग जाओगे. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट भाई. हर चीज का रीजन होता है. लेट्स गो विद दैट रीजन व्हाई कांस्टेंट्स आर बीइंग इग्नोर्ड. लेट्स से एक बहुत ही फेमस फॉर्मूला था बचपन में, v इज इक्वल्स टू आई आर, जिसको हम ओम्स लॉ बोलते थे व्हेन वी वर इन क्लास 11th. तो हमने एक इक्वेशन पढ़ा हुआ था जिसको ओम्स लॉ बोलते हैं, जिसका मतलब ये है द करंट इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू रेजिस्टेंस. रेजिस्टेंस ज्यादा होगा तो करंट कम फ्लो होगा, करंट ज्यादा होगा तो रेजिस्टेंस कम होगा. That's it. And to find an equation so that we can remove this proportionality symbol, we have introduced a voltage thing, right? So अगर आप ध्यान से देखो, I have written V is equals to 10 into I into R. It's still V is equals to IR, but the answer I'm getting that will be multiplied with 10. अब एक बात बताओ, 10 तो कांस्टेंट है, क्या 10 कभी इनकी वैल्यू में कंट्रीब्यूशन करेगा? से मी यस और नो? The value of my current will be different, the value of my resistance will be different. तो मेरा जो पूरा सोल्यूशन है वो मोर ओवर डिपेंड कर रहा है आई एंड आर की वैल्यू पे. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर अग्रीइंग ऑन दिस? Every time my answer is getting multiplied with 10, which is not a very big deal for me. It's still the solution, the answer is being decided by I and R. भाई I और R की वैल्यू पे ही डिपेंड करेगा मेरा आंसर. This 10 will always be 10. इसके पास और कोई आइडेंटिटी नहीं है. But the value of I and R will keep changing. They are variables for me, and those variables will be the deciding factor for me. So constants are being ignored because they have a value, but that is a constant value. They don't have they don't have flexibility in their nature. In my first iteration, maybe my I is 2, R is 4. In my second iteration, maybe my I is 5, R is 3. So I and R are flexible towards many values, but 10 is a constant. 10 will not contribute in my answer. So for this reason, constants are being ignored while calculating a general equation, while calculating something in a general way. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear with this. Why constants are being ignored when you'll be calculating time complexity. Now, second thing is, let's say I have a for loop and this for loop is starting from 1 and it's going till the value of n I plus plus. And inside of this loop, I have another loop for int j is equals to 1, j is less than equals to n, and j plus plus. I have two loops, but this time these two loops are not independent. They are dependent. This second wala loop is inside this first loop. So that means for every value of I, this loop will run for n times. This scenario is called as nested looping condition. Nested means एक के अंदर एक के अंदर एक. Fine. Now what I want to print the value of j. That is this loop. Now do one thing. I'm giving you a value n is equals to 7. Take 2 minutes and tell me how many times this print statement will be executed. I just want the count of that. The value of my n is 7, and what I want you to give me the number of times this print wala function will execute. Basically, the amount of time this inner loop will run, so that will be the count of this execution. Fine. So print statement उतना ही चलेगा जितनी बारी अंदर वाला loop चलेगा. But it's not like that. Something is different here. Fine. So take 2 minutes. I'm giving you a value n is equal to 7. बस तुम्हें ये बताना है कि ये जो print statement है ये कितनी बार execute होगा. Take 2 minutes and come up with an answer. Guys, am I clear with the question? Is there anyone who is still having confusion with the question? Am I clear with the question? Say me yes or no. If I'm clear with the question. Fine. So take 2 minutes and tell me for how many times this print statement will be executed.
सर 49.
49. ओके फाइन. एनीवन एल्स जिसके पास कोई और आंसर है? यश 49. फाइन. एनीवन एल्स? एक बार प्लीज ध्यान से सोच लो. 49 ही है ना? What about others? Faz, Priyanshu, Badi, Ritik, Zilan, Haripriya. What about you guys? Like, what will be the number of times your print statement will get executed? अच्छा यश राइट. यश अगर मैं गलत नहीं हो तो यू आर दैट एलपी वाला गाय ना? Okay, fine. I still remember like you were sitting with two more people, right? So I think the first guy was Kumud. Fine. And second का नाम मुझे नहीं याद है. He was wearing specs. Fine. Okay, fine. Let's start with how many times this statement will get execute. Fine. प्लीज ध्यान से समझना क्योंकि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. अगर ये नहीं समझ में आएगा तो यू वोंट बी एबल टू काउंट द एग्जीक्यूशन. फाइन. So let's start. Now see here. This outer loop is running from 1 to 7 because n is equals to 7. This outer loop will run for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's suppose the first value of my outer loop is I is equals to 1, and inside of this loop will get executed. Now the current value of my I is equals to 1, and for I is equals to 1 this loop will get executed. Now this loop is also starting from 1 and going till n. That means this loop will also run for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Now for I is equals to 1 this loop is running from 1 to 7. That means for I is equals to 1 the inner loop is making 7 iterations. In the next, when my I will be equals to 2, for this 2, this inner loop is still making 7 iterations. For my I is equals to 3, this loop is making again 7 iterations. In short, when my I will become 7, then also this inner loop will be making 7 iterations. So if for one value the inner loop is making 7 iterations, then for 7 values the inner loop will making 7 iterations. That means for 1 it's making 7, and for 7, that is from 1 to 7, it will make 7 into 7, that becomes 49 iterations. What does it mean? The outer loop is running from 1 to 7, and for every value of my outer loop, my inner loop is running for 7 times. When my I is equals to 1, the inner loop will run for 7 times. Similarly, for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for every single value of I, my inner loop will run for 7 times. So if it's running for 7 for 1, 7 for 2, 7 for 3, so for a general case scenario, if my I will become n, my inner loop will run for n times. So if it's running for n times for 1, if it's running for n times for 2, so it will run for n times for n also. That becomes n square. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear with this, how I'm making 49 iterations. Give me a thumbs up on this. Are we guys on the same page? Are we? Okay, okay, fine. Now if you
Yes.
note, now if you'll notice one thing, the equation which I got is n square. N square. The outer loop is running for 1 to n, and the inner loop is also running from 1 to n. And for every value of outer loop, inner loop is running for n. So for n, it will run for n times. That means the outer loop is running for n times and the inner loop is running for n times, that means the total number of iterations they will make will be n into n, that becomes n square. So that means for every value of n, my looping statement is making n square number of iterations. So the time complexity of this approach is big O of n square. That's it. Guys, is it clear why it is big O of n square? Are we on the same page? सबको clear है ये चीज? How it's big O of n square? अच्छा, by the way, are you guys feeling confident in terms of time complexity now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. So that's how the time complexity becomes big O of n square in this case, right? Okay. Now I'm giving you a problem. So let's say the third situation is there's a for loop. What happened, Priyanshu? You're laughing. For end I is equals to 1, I is less than, I is equals to 0, I is less than or equals to n, and every time I is getting updated with the twice of I. That means if in the first iteration my I is 1, in the next iteration my I will become 2, then my I will become 4, then my I will become 8, and the moment it will be greater than n, my loop will get break. So with the previous problems, my I was updating with +1. So if in the previous iteration my I was 1, in the next iteration it would be 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. But here my I is incrementing with the twice of the previous value. If it's 1 now, then it will be 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64, and so on until it's less than my n. So let's say I just passed a value n is equals to 18. Now take 2 minutes and tell me for how many times this print statement will get executed. This one. For how many times this print statement will get executed? Sub try karo. Everyone give a try. For how many times? For n is equals to 18. For how many times this print statement will get executed? Now start. ओके फाइन फाइन फाइन, जिसका हो गया वो प्लीज आंसर ना बताए चैट बॉक्स में. Let's let everyone try, right?
Yeah, there is no stop, there is no break in that function. I mean, for loop,
Okay,
it's
fine. So,
infinite.
so you're trying to say that, Acha, what will be the number of times your print statement will execute? I want answer in a single line. Jillian, what would be the number of what would be the that exact number, exact value?
Yeah, initially how much you take? 18, huh?
Yeah, 18.
18, how much you increment? Into
It's
2.
incrementing with
Eh,
twice of the previous value.
Okay.
So I just want you to tell me the number of times this print statement will get executed.
Yeah, it will be number of time. We are not able to give exactly because of iteration. It not stop right. So it will be goes continuously.
Okay. So you mean that the number of iterations will be infinite.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Anyone else who's having any other answer? Kathin, Priyanshu, anyone else? So according to Yash and Zilan, the number of iterations is infinite. Anyone else who want to say something, or should I start with the approach, like how it's infinite?
Sir, 32, yeah, or 16,
Okay, fine,
because
fine. Okay, fine. So let me give you the answer. So this loop will run for infinite times. But why? So why it's going till infinite times? Let's say in the first iteration, my I is equals to 0. Is my 0 less than 18? Yes, it is. So this I will get printed. And my I will update with I into 2. So my I will become twice. So what was the value of my previous I? 0 into 2. भाई ये फिर से 0 बन गया. In the next iteration, my I is 0, 0 is less than n, so 0 will get printed and I will be updated with I into 2 and my I is still 0. It will be 0 into 2 and my I will become 0 once again. My I will always be 0 and 0 will always be less than 18. So this loop will never stop. So the number of iterations which this loop will make is infinite iterations. And once your memory is filled, if your memory is full, the iteration will get stopped. So after making 1,000 iterations, 2,000 iterations, when your memory will be overflowed, the iteration will get stopped. So this loop will make infinite number of iterations, and time complexity is being calculated for the finite values, the finite number of iterations. So there won't be any time complexity for this approach. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this. Why it's going till infinite times. अब एक काम करो. I'm just updating this 0 with 1.
sir, 16.
16. फिर से सोच लो. The value of n is 18.
सर आइट्रेट 5 टाइम होगी, और मतलब टोटल नंबर ऑफ प्रिंट होगा ना, वो 16 टाइम होगा.
If the iteration is 5, so how you will be getting the the total printing of 16? कैसे होगा ये? जब 5 बार ही लूप चला रहे हो तो 16 वैल्यूज कैसे प्रिंट हो रही है? You know what you're saying? The values are dependent on the number of iterations, Kathan. Are you getting my point?
यस सर.
So if it's iterating for 5 times, so 16 values कैसे print होंगी? Make sense? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. Okay, fine. अच्छा, कथन आप ये बोल रहे थे कि 16 भी प्रिंट होगा.
यस सर.
फिर से गलत. ओके फाइन, देखो कैसे होगा ये.
सर कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है.
Okay, fine. Leave that. Let's start. So, Yash, do you have any answer, buddy, for that? What will be the number of iterations?
नहीं सर, सेम ही आंसर है मेरा भी.
That's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. Is it?
हाँ सर.
Okay, fine. Let's start. Jillian, do you have any other answer?
No, no, no.
Same. And
Yeah.
what about the other people, man? Can you guys speak? What about Faz and Priyanshu? आज कुछ बोलेंगे नहीं आप? Fine. Haripriya, you there? Okay, fine. Let's start. So my I is starting from 1 and my I is going till n, and every time my I is getting updated with 2. So I is equals to 1. In the first iteration, my I will be equals to 1 and my 1 is less than or equals to 18. So 1 will get printed. In the next iteration, my I will update with I into 2. So my I will become true. 2 is less than 18. That means 2 will get printed. In the next iteration, my I will become twice once again. So my I becomes 4. And 4 is less than 18. So 4 will get printed. In the next iteration, 4 into 2, it will become 8. And 8 is less than 18. So 8 will get printed. Then I have 16. 8 into 2 is equals to 16. And 16 is less than equals to 18. So 16 will get printed. But the moment when you will be twicing 16, you will be getting 32. And 32 is not less than 18. So that means this loop will get break. And you'll be getting 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 as an output. So, sir, what we have noticed here, the value of your n is 18, and for 18, you are making only 5 iterations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. अभी तक क्या हो रहा था कि we were getting big of n square, we were getting big of n, but sir, the value which I'm getting, it's not around big of n, it's not around big of n square also. So what will be the time complexity now? जब भी कभी ऐसा हो, हमेशा बड़े इनपुट लिया करो. You'll be taking bigger inputs. Let's say I have taken 100. This time my n is equals to 100. So I'm just writing the output, right? So I will be getting 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. Why I'm stopping at 64? Because 64 into 2 will give me 128, and 120 is greater than 100. So this loop will get break. So for 100, I'm making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 iterations. Let's say my n becomes 200. So one more value will be added, that is 128. But when I'll be doing 128 into 2, I will be getting 256. And 256 is greater than 200. So my loop will break once again. So for 100, I'm making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 iterations. And for 200, I'm making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 iterations. So for 100, I'm making 7. For 200, I'm making 8 iterations. इसका मतलब क्या है? What does it mean? 7 is a very least value. In terms of 100, 7 एक बहुत ही छोटी वैल्यू है. In terms of 200, 8 एक बहुत ही छोटी वैल्यू है. So what will be the time complexity? Let's say if I would be making it 300, अगर मैं इसको 300 भी कर दूंगा, तो it will still make 8 iterations. If I'll be making it 400, it will still make 4 iterations. If I'll be making it 500, it will still make 8 iterations. So basically हो क्या रहा है? Iterations इतने कम क्यों होते जा रहे हैं टाइम के साथ? So here there is a new concept, and that concept is being called as logarithmic time complexity. The thing which I'm going to tell you right now, you will have to remember this thing till the end of your data structures journey. Fine. If your current input is getting multiplied or divided by any number, so I'm writing in a general case, if your current input is getting multiplied or divided by any number, the time complexity of that approach will be logarithmic. But there is one more point which is damn important than this. If the difference between the difference between the given input n, that was my 100, and the number of iterations, that was 7, if the difference between the given input and the number of iterations is much less, the number of iterations is much less than the given input n, in that particular case the time complexity is big O of log n. I'm repeating once again, if the number of iterations which you're making is much less than the given input n, the time complexity is logarithmic, and the number by which your input is getting multiplied or getting divided, that becomes the base of this log, that is log of n base 2. अब देखो यहाँ पे my input was getting multiplied with 2. If my I was I into 3, so still the time complexity will be log n, but the base will be 3. That's it. So guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear with this, why the time complexity of this approach is big O of log n. Guys, are we on the same page? अब आपको समझ में आने लगा है like how to calculate time complexity. आज के बाद मुझे नहीं लगता है कि टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी निकालने में कोई प्रॉब्लम होने वाली है. Is it? Fine. Now there's a question for you, and the question is, I'm writing a program. You just have to tell me the time complexity of that program. For int I is equals to 0, I is less than equals to n, I plus plus, for int j is equals to 1, j is less than equals to n, and j is equals to j into 2. Again, जो अभी हमने just देखा है, and I'm just printing the value of j. Now take 2 minutes and tell me the time complexity of this approach. But before that, tell me for how many times this print statement will get executed. First, you have to tell me the count of the number of execution of this print statement. Then you will be telling me the time complexity of this approach. Take 5 minutes and come up with an answer. And the answer which you'll be giving me, you'll have to explain that answer to me. Fine? Your time starts now. Take 5 minutes
सर
and
n की वैल्यू
it's up to you. कुछ भी ले लो. चलो मैं देता हूँ.
ओके
मैं देता हूँ. Take n is equals to 24. भाई देखो आप लोगों को मजा आ रहा है. वैसे पढ़ने में तो नहीं पूछा जाता है ये, बट फिर भी आर यू गाइस एंजॉयिंग द कंटेंट? मतलब सही
यस
लग रहा
सर
है आपको? Okay, fine. What's the answer? किसी का हुआ? What's the answer? अरे इतना सोच क्यों रहे हो? Tell me what's the answer? अच्छा चैट बॉक्स में लिखे हो क्या? Priyanshu Singh. Okay, fine. Repeat 25 times. 1 to 4, 8, 8, 16. Repeat 25 times. Okay, fine. Anyone else? इसका कोई और आंसर आया हो? Jilan, Kathan, anyone? Okay, fine. Same answer. Mohammed Faz. Okay, fine. Let me start. Let me start now. Fine. Now see here. The if my n is equals to 24, this loop, the outer loop will run from 0 to 24. That means the values that my I holds is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 till 24, right? And if I'll count, so this will become 25. And my inner loop is moving from 1 to n, but every time my I is getting updated with the twice of the previous value. So we just have seen this example. If my n is equals to 24, so this loop will run for 1, 2, what happened? Okay, fine. This loop will run for 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. That's it. Because in the next iteration, it will become 32, and 32 is not less than n. So the inner loop is running for 5 times, and the outer loop is running for 25 times. That means for every value of I, this loop is running for 5 times. When my I was 1, this loop was running for 5 times. When my I was 2, this loop was running for 5 times. When my I was 3, this loop will run for 5 times. That means for every value of I, for every value of my outer loop, the inner loop will run for 5 times. That simply means, now please be careful what I'm saying right now. The outer loop is making n iterations. If the value of my n is equals to 24, so the outer loop is making 25 iterations and the inner loop is making 5 iterations. So we just have discussed this thing. If the number of iterations is much less than the given input, then the time complexity will tends to logarithmic. So the outer loop is making n iterations and the inner loop is making log of n iterations. That means for every value of I, the inner loop is making log n iterations. So that means for n, the inner loop will be making log n iterations. That means the total number of iterations these for loops will make together, that will be big O of log n base 2. Why 2? because my input is getting multiplied with 2. So that means the time complexity of this is big O of n log n. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this, how it's n log n. समझ में आया ये चीज? The outer loop is making n
Could you
iterations.
please explain
Yeah?
again?
Okay, fine.
Please explain again.
Yeah, sure. So let's say the value of my n was 24 and the outer loop is running from 0 to 24, right? And if I count the number of iterations of my outer loop, it's 25. 0 to 24, it's 25. And the inner loop is making only 5 iterations for every value of I. Because if my n is equals to 24, my inner loop will run for 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. And we have seen this example just before. That means the inner loop is making log of n iterations and the outer loop is near around n iterations. That means for every value of I, my inner loop is making log of n iterations. That means for n, it will be making log of n iterations. So for 1, it's making log n. For 2, it's making log n. For 3, it's making log n. That means for n, it will make n into log n total number of iterations. That's it. Jillian, am I clear now? Jillian, am I clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this. How it's big O of n log n. The outer loop is making n iterations. The inner loop is making log of n iterations. And if I'll have to find the total number of iterations, that will be big O of n log n. Fine. So for every value of I, it was running for 5 times. Let's calculate. So the outer loop is running for, so for 0, it will make 5 iterations. For 1, it will make 5 iterations. For 25, it will make 25 into 5, that is 125 iterations. Let's calculate. So the value of n is 24 multiplied by log of 24 base 2. Let's calculate. That is 4.5. Okay, fine. इसको नियर अराउंड 5 मान लो आप. फाइन. It's in between 4 and 5. So 24 into 5. Yes, 120. That is approximately equals to 125. That is my time complexity. That's how I got big O of n log n. That's it. So this is how you will calculate your time complexity and you will find the relation between your given input and the number of iterations. That's it. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear with this, why it is big O of n log n. Are we making sense? Are we on the same page? किसी को कोई भी परेशानी, कोई भी दिक्कत? Faz, Priyanshu, Yash, Kathan, किसी को कोई भी problem? Jilan, is everything okay? What about others? Let me just ask others. What about Priya? If you guys are not able to speak, you can just write in the chat box or you can just give me a thumbs up. I'm being okay with that. What about Ritik? You here? Ritik, you're there. Is everything fine? Okay, fine. Okay, right. So now there's one more problem for you, and this one is tricky, and I'm damn sure you guys will be making mistake in this. Fine. So question number 4. The question is same. The number of times this print statement will execute, and then you'll have to tell me the time complexity of this approach. Let's start. Take 5 minutes and come up with a solution. What will be the time complexity of this approach? This is I is equals to I into 2. So don't be confused. And this is J plus plus. Take 5 minutes and come up with a solution.
सर अपन एन कुछ भी ले सकते हैं ना?
It's up to you. चलो एक काम करो. N की वैल्यू ले लो 100. Let's suppose the value of N is 100. Start solving.
सर
Yeah. Yeah. You can take any value of N. Take 100. Initially take 100. Seven times 1 to 100. 7 times 1 to 100.
यस सर 7 टाइम्स रन करेगा.
7 times 1 to
और
100.
और सर इसकी टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी होगी log n.
No login. It's not login. 7 times कैसे करेगा यार? 2 फॉर लूप लगे हैं इसमें. ध्यान से देखो.
सर बट आउटर फॉर लूप लेस आइटरेशन कर रहा है इनर फॉर लूप से, इसलिए भी
हम्म
मैं का टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी का बता रहा हूँ.
Okay, fine. Now see here. 707. Yes, mostly. Fine. So in this particular case, the number of iterations will not play a very big role because this case is called as lower bound situation in time complexity. The case on which we are right now, that will be called as lower bound situation in a time complexity. Let me tell you the difference between n log n and big O of n. Let's start. Now see here. First of all, let's go with the values, go with the number of iterations, go with the number of times the print statement will get executed. My outer for loop is going till log of n because my input is getting multiplied with a value, and every time my value it's getting twice, so that the time complexity of my outer for loop is tends to big O of log n. And my inner for loop is going till 1 to n. That means my inner for loop will run for n times. If my n is equals to 100, this inner for loop will be running for 100 times. And the outer for loop will run for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 times. That means, will I be making in total 700 iterations? 7 into 100. So basically, अगर ध्यान से देखो तो एक नॉर्मल सा प्रोग्रामर बोलेगा सर द टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ दिस फॉर लूप इज ऑफ दिस condition is big O of log n into n. The outer for loop is making log n and the inner for loop is making n. So log n into n, that becomes n log n once again. Is it? Can I say this thing? The outer for loop is making log n and the inner for loop is making n. So log n into n, for every value of n, the inner for loop is making n iterations. For 1 it's making n, for 2 it's making n, for 3 it's making n. So for log n it will make n. So that means log n into n. How many of you are agreeing on this? The time complexity of this approach is big O of log n into n. That simply means big O of n log n. कितने लोग अग्री करते हो इस बात पे? Fine. Now there's a catch in the story. And the catch in the story is what a real time complexity stands for. ये क्वेश्चन अगर इंटरव्यू में आया तो मान के चलो कि आपके कॉलेज में अगर 900 लोग हैं उसमें से 850 इसका आंसर नहीं कर पाएंगे, और करेंगे भी तो वो गलत आंसर देंगे आपकी तरह कि दैट इज we go of n log n. The time complexity of this approach is we go of n. Let's see how. The outer for loop is making we go of log n number of iterations, that is big O of log n. It's making logarithmic iterations, and the inner for loop is running for n times, that is 1 to n, and the outer for loop is running for log n. So it should be big O of log n into n, but it won't be my answer because, so just make a note of a point. It's very 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 important. आज के बाद से if I'll judge you on the basis of time complexity, मैं इस क्वेश्चन पे जज करूंगा आपको. Fine. If your inner for loop, if your inner loop is making more iterations than outer for loop या outer loop, the time complexity of that approach will be decided by inner for loop or inner loop. So the inner loop is running for n times. So the time complexity of this approach is big O of n. That's it. That's big O of n. I'm repeating once again. If inner loop is making more iterations than outer loop, the time complexity will be decided by inner loop. The number of times inner loop will execute. So the time complexity of this whole approach is big O of n. That's it. So this is your answer. And that's how you become different to these 850 people. क्योंकि लगभग लगभग 95% लोग इसका आंसर बिको ऑफ एन लॉग एन बोलेंगे, बट वो सेलेक्टिव 10-12 लोग इसका आंसर बोलेंगे बिको ऑफ एन, एंड आज के बाद से वो आप होंगे. फाइन, दैट्स इट. सो गाइस गिव मी अ थम्स अप इफ आई एम बीइंग क्लियर ऑन दिस. सो बेसिकली पढ़ना ऐसे नहीं है कि भाई रट लेते हैं फटाक से. टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी 3-4 बार निकाला, 5वीं बार में रट लेंगे उसको. द थिंग इज ना कि अ गुड प्रोग्रामर नोज, a good interviewer will never give you a connected question. आपको लगा होगा कि पिछले क्वेश्चन और इस क्वेश्चन में सिमिलैरिटी है. लॉग इन एंड एन हो रहा है, इस वहां पे एन और लॉग इन हो रहा था, तो आई डिड एन लॉग इन, तो यहाँ पे भी एन लॉग इन. रिमेंबर वन थिंग, कनेक्शन जो आपको समझ में आता है क्वेश्चंस में, उसमें कनेक्शंस होता ही नहीं है. Never try to connect your current question with the previous one when you are giving an interview. I'm repeating once again. इंटरव्यू देते समय कभी भी पिछले क्वेश्चन से अभी के क्वेश्चन को कनेक्ट नहीं करेंगे. ना आप इतने ज्यादा स्टूपिड है और ना ही आपका इंटरव्यूअर इतना स्टूपिड है. दे बोथ आर गिविंग देयर बेस्ट. इंटरव्यूअर को ये दिखाना है कि उसको आता है, और आपको भी ये दिखाना है कि आपको आता है. क्वेश्चन पढ़ेंगे ध्यान से, क्वेश्चन देखोगे ध्यान से, फिर बताओगे अपना आंसर. नेवर ट्राई टू कनेक्ट द current answer with the previous one. That's it. Give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this, so that we can proceed further. Is it fine? All good? Let's do two more questions, then we can wrap this meeting. Fine. Because you guys need some time to revise. आपको revise भी करना है, so that we can start positively from the data structures tomorrow. Right? The next question. By the way, have you guys done questions like this before? कि कभी ऐसे क्वेश्चंस कराया है किसी ने? मतलब आपने खुद से किए हैं ऐसे क्वेश्चंस, ऐसे पैटर्न बाय पैटर्न, एंड आई थिंक नो वन has explained your time complexity like this way. Yes or no? Is it? You can unmute yourself, it's fine.
नो सर.
आपका तो पता है मुझे कथन. Anyone else? यश, प्रियांशु, श्रेया, Jillian, have you guys solved questions of time complexity like this before? आप बोलते नहीं हो. Let's make it interactive यार. Okay, yes, no sir. Fine. Yeah. Okay, fine. Question number 5. For int I is equals to 1, I is less than equals to n, I is equals to I into 3. For int I is equals to 1, I is less than equals to n, I is equals to I into 2. Okay, fine, it's j because I is already been declared. It's j. Print j. Again, the question is same. For how many times this print statement will execute? And what will be the time complexity of this approach? Take 5 minutes and come up with a solution. Let's take the initial value of n is equals to 100.
सर टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इसकी बिग ऑफ एन.
big of n, फिर से सोच लो ध्यान से, नंबर ऑफ आइट्रेशंस काउंट करो, कितनी वैल्यूज प्रिंट हो रही है वो काउंट करो, ऐसे रैंडमली गेस्ट मत करो कथन, टेक योर टाइम। एन नहीं होगी, क्योंकि कोई दोनों में से कोई भी लूप एन तक नहीं जा रहा है। इफ एन इज 100 तो दोनों में से कोई भी लूप 100 टाइम्स नहीं चल रहा है। प्लीज ध्यान से देखो। log of n square। ऑल राइट यश, एनीवन एल्स? किसी का कोई आंसर आया? कथन, जिलन?
यस सर, लॉग ऑफ एन स्क्वायर.
log of n square, okay fine, take more 1 minute, let other people solve, fine, then we'll start. log of n square, okay fine, let's start. So as we have noticed, I think from past two questions we are doing, we are being into log of n something, right? So if we'll notice one thing, the outer for loop is will make log of n iterations. That simply means, let's say my n is 100, so the outer for loop will run for 1, and every time my I is getting updated with thrice of the previous one. So in the next time it will become 3, then 9, it will become 27, then 81. And with respect to that, my inner for loop is getting updated with twice. So for the first time, it will be 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. That means both of the loops are making log of n iterations. The outer for loop is making log of n, the inner for loop is making log of n. But sir, what's the difference? The outer for loop is making log of n iterations, but with base 3, because my input is getting multiplied with a constant that is 3, and the inner loop is also making log of n iterations, but with base 2, because my input is getting multiplied with 2, right? So The outer for loop is making log of n base 3 iterations. The inner for loop is making log of n base 2 iterations. So total number of iterations will be log of n base 3 into log of n base 2. And I just have to, so the time complexity is big O of log n base 3 into log n base 2. But sir, while calculating the time complexity, constants are being ignored. So this thing will not play a role in a general case. So the time complexity is big O of log n whole square. Log n into n, log n into log n become log n square. So the time complexity is big O of log of n square. That's it. Guys, give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this. Why the time complexity is big O of log n square. Make sense? Uh, Make sense? All right. So let's have the last question of the day. Fine. This question is my favorite. Fine. That's my favorite question. Now, what you have to tell me, the number of iterations, the number of times this print statement will get executed, and second, what will be the time complexity of this approach? A very standard problem to calculate time complexity. Fine. So take 5 minutes and come up with a solution. Your time starts now. This is I. Don't be confused. This is I. Katan, you there?
यस सर
आंसर ठीक है
सर
बट
क्योंकि
हाँ बताओ
जो आउटर लूप है ना वो तो 5 टाइम ही रन कर रहा है बट जो इनर लूप है वो इनफाइनाइट टाइम रन करेगा
इनफाइनाइट
तो
टाइम्स
मतलब
नहीं रन करेगा ध्यान से सोचो जो बोल रहे हो वो मीनिंग क्या निकल रहा है दैट मैटर्स
एक से हाँ हाँ सर एक सेकंड आई आई है ना
इसलिए
एक
मैंने
सेकंड
आपसे बोला कि टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी सही है बट द एक्सप्लेनेशन इज इम्पोर्टेंट फाइन बिग ऑफ एन होगा तो जरूर
इस गिव मी 2 मिनट्स
या टेक मैन दैट्स फाइन टेक मोर 5 minutes it's fine but I want the answer from you and everyone if someone is saying big of n to this question then why it is big of n right
सर n इक्वल्स टू 100 ले लूं
कुछ भी ले लो आप 1000 ले लो 1000 2000 ले लो it's up to you but just come up with a solution why it is big of n the answer is big of n ऐसा तो नहीं काटेंगे छुट्टी तो अलाउड है ना हाँ, एक छुट्टी तो क्या लगता है सूरज ने बता दिया होगा तो मेरी छुट्टी का हाँ अरे छुट्टी का नहीं बताया तुमने स्कैन नहीं किया ना स्कैन किया है तुम तो वहां से दिख रहे हो दिक्कत ये है ना तो अगर स्कैन करना पता ना So, Yash and Priyanshu, are you guys asking me or you are giving me the answer? Because I can see question mark there. कुछ कह रहे हैं आप? Okay, fine. Let's start with the intuition. Let's say the value of my I is equals, so my value of my n is 100. So the outer for loop will run for 1, 3, because every time my I is getting updated with thrice of the previous value. 1, 3, 9, 27, 81. That's it. Because 81 threes are will become 243, and 243 is greater than 100. So it won't make any further iteration, right? Now, if you'll notice one thing, let's say for the first iteration, my I is equals to 1. So my inner for loop will run from 0 to I. See, it will run till I. And what's the value of my I? 1. So that means 0 is less than 1. Yes, it is. So this statement will run for one time. Next, in the next iteration, my I will be thrice. That means my I will become 3, because it was initially 1 and now it will be 3. For 3, this loop will run for 0 to 3 times. That is for 0, for 1 and for 2. That means for I is equals to 3, this loop will run for 3 times. In the next iteration, this 3 will become 9. And for I is equals to 9, this loop will run for 0 to 9 times. That is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 till 8. That means for I is equals to 9, this loop is running for 9 times. Similarly, for I is equals to 27, this loop will run for 27 number of times. And for I is equals to 81, this loop will run for 81 number of times. Now, let's add all these values. 1 plus 3 plus 9 plus 27 plus 81. 1 plus 7, 8 plus 9, 17 plus 3, 20 plus 1, 21. 8 plus 2, 10 plus 8 plus 2, 10 plus 2, 121. So your print statement will execute for 121 number of times. But sir, what will be the time complexity? Because I'm not getting the same number of iteration for every value of I. As my I is getting changed, my number of iterations of inner loop is also getting changed. So I got one thing. Anyhow, inner for loop will make more iterations than outer for loop, because outer for loop will run only for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But with respect to that, my inner for loop is running for 121 number of times. The outer for loop is running for 5 times and the inner for loop is running for 121 number of times. Man, ab ye kya hai? Every time my number of iterations is getting changed. With I, j is getting changed. Then how can I calculate my time complexity? I just told you, if the inner for loop is making more iterations than outer for loop, the time complexity will revolve around inner for loop. The number of times your inner for loop will execute, that will be the time complexity for you. And if I'll add all the number of iterations, I would end up getting 121. But sir, how can I calculate as big of an? Let's start. The numbers are 1. In the next iteration, it will run for 3 times, then for 9 times, then for 27 times, then for 81 times. 1 can be written as 3 to the power 0. 3 can be written as 3 to the power 1. 9 can be written as 3 to the power 2. 27 can be written as 3 to the power 3. And 81 can be written as 3 to the power 4. Now, if you'll notice one thing, I'm getting a progression. I'm getting a series, and we have studied this thing in class 11th or 12th. This series is called as geometric progression. What is geometric progression? A geometric progression is a series in which the common ratio will always be same. Divide 3 with 1, you will be getting 3. Divide 9 with 3, you will be getting 3. Divide 27 with 9, you'll be getting 3. Divide 81 with 27, you'll be getting 3. This common ratio will always be same. This series is called as geometric progression. That means if I have to find the time complexity, I have to add these values to get the number of iterations so that we can calculate the time complexity. And the sum of GP is A1 minus common ratio to the power n upon 1 minus common ratio. And if we'll solve this formula, you would end up getting approximately n. So the number of iterations your inner for loop is making is equals to the value of your n, so that the time complexity of this approach is big O of n. That's it. Give me a thumbs up if I'm being clear on this. लगा शौक? कुछ नया सीखे? Semi yes or no? कुछ नया सीखे?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So this is how you people will be calculating the time complexity. बिना पेन उठाए क्वेश्चन को देख के प्रोग्राम को देख के टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी बतानी है आज के बाद से ना तुम्हारे सर बताएंगे कि टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी क्या होगी और ना ही तुम पूछोगे क्वेश्चन देख के समझ जाओगे कि टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी क्या है बस एक बार रिवाइज कर लेना जो मैंने आज पढ़ाया है Fine. So that's how we are ending the second day of our boot camp, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And if you have anything to ask, please ask. Just give me a moment. I'm getting an important call. Give me a moment. I had an important call. Okay, fine. So thank you so much for joining. And any feedback, any suggestion from your end? कैसा लगा सेशन? समझ में आई चीजें? टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी पे थोड़ा कॉन्फिडेंस आया कि कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे, सोचेंगे कैसे आज के बाद? आर यू गाइस कंफर्टेबल विद टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी नाउ? आर यू गाइस फीलिंग कंफर्टेबल नाउ? Say me yes or no.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay, fine. Anything जो आप कुछ add on करना चाहोगे? Or should I just end this meeting?